Open your oven door and look carefully at the bottom, especially where the corners meet the sides. You probably know exactly what I mean. There is that black crust that has baked itself into the metal, the brown splatter climbing the walls, and little spots that have been there so long you almost stopped seeing them. Then you turn the oven on, and before the food is even hot, a thin smoke rises and the kitchen smells like something is burning. Not dinner, something older. Maybe you have opened that door 100 times, looked at the mess, and quietly closed it again because the thought of cleaning it felt worse than living with it. And perhaps one day you finally bought the strongest oven cleaner you could find, sprayed the inside, and spent the next hour with gloves on, eyes watering, and your head halfway inside the oven trying to scrub away years of grease. Or maybe your oven has that convenient self-clean button, and you pressed it because the machine promised to do the work for you. Come sit with me for a minute because there are 2 things I want you to understand before you clean another inch. One is that most of the hard work people do inside an oven is unnecessary. The other is that convenience can come with a price if you do not know what the oven is actually doing. My name is Lucia, and I share the old household methods I learned from the women in my family in Brazil, the kind of practical knowledge that used to travel across a kitchen table instead of coming from another bottle on a store shelf. We took care of appliances because replacing them was not something you did casually, and we learned to let time, soaking, and simple materials do the work before using force. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel if you want more practical cleaning methods that save money, protect the things you already own, and bring back the kind of household knowledge our mothers and grandmothers used every day. Here, we do not chase complicated routines. We learn why the mess is there, what actually loosens it, and how to clean without turning every job into a battle. And tell me in the comments, did your mother or grandmother have one cleaning trick she swore by that you still use today? I love reading which habits survive from one family to another. Now, the first place we start is not the oven floor. It is the racks. Take them out before you spray, wipe, or scrub anything else. The racks are full of narrow bars, corners, and baked-on grease. And if you leave them inside, they stay in your way during the entire job. Instead, let them soak while you work on everything else. Lay them in a bathtub, a large plastic storage bin, or another container big enough to hold them. Fill it with warm water. If the manufacturer of your racks allows it, add a dishwasher detergent pod or a measured amount of dishwasher detergent. That is different from ordinary dish soap. Dishwasher detergents are formulated to break down stubborn food residue and grease during a long wash, which is exactly what we want from the soaking water. Put the racks in, make sure the greasy sections are wet, and then leave them alone. This is one of the principles I learned early at home. If time can soften the mess, let time work while your hands are busy somewhere else. You do not earn anything by fighting grease before it is ready to let go. While the racks soak, go back to the oven itself. Make sure the oven is completely cool. If your manual recommends disconnecting power before deep cleaning, follow that instruction. Then remove the dry, loose debris before any cleaner touches the surface. Crumbs, flakes of burnt food, little pieces of cheese, old crust from a casserole that boiled over months ago, all of that should come out dry. If you wet it first, you create a sticky black paste and spread it across the floor. Use a small brush. A handheld vacuum only if its instructions allow use on cold, dry debris, or simply paper towel to gather everything into the trash. For a stubborn, dry piece, a plastic scraper can help lift it without attacking the finish. The important part is simple. Dry mess comes out before wet cleaning begins. That one habit can cut your work in half. Now we reach the cleaner, and there are 2 paths. The first is the simple method I prefer for an oven that is dirty but not completely overwhelmed. Baking soda and water first, vinegar later. And please hear this part, because people love to pour baking soda and vinegar into the same bowl just to watch it foam. It looks impressive, but the bubbling is mostly the two substances reacting with each other. You lose much of what makes each one useful when you mix them together at once, so we use them separately. Start with baking soda. Put some in a bowl and add only enough water to make a thick paste, something close to the texture of frosting. Spread that paste over the greasy, baked-on areas of the oven interior, avoiding heating elements, igniters, vents, fans, sensors, and any surfaces your manufacturer tells you not to coat. The paste needs to stay on the grime, not on delicate components. Then give it time. This is not the moment to start scrubbing furiously. Let the paste sit and soften the residue. Depending on how dirty the oven is, that may mean a short rest or a much longer dwell time. Follow the care instructions for your appliance and do not let homemade advice overrule the manual. When the grease begins to soften, use a damp cloth or non-scratch sponge to work the paste gently. Wipe away what lifts, rinse the cloth, and continue in sections. Once most of the baking soda is gone, a light mist of white vinegar on compatible surfaces can help react with and lift remaining baking soda residue so it wipes away more easily. You are using the baking soda first for the paste and gentle abrasion, then the vinegar afterward as a separate finishing step. That order matters. Is this method as instant as a powerful commercial oven cleaner? No. It usually asks for more patience. But for many ordinary messes, patience is cheaper than brute force. And I want to know something from you. Which part of oven cleaning do you hate most? The racks, the greasy floor, or the door glass? Put it below, because every household seems to have one part that becomes the enemy. The second road is a commercial oven cleaner. I am not going to pretend those products do not work. They can work very quickly on heavy baked-on grease, but they need to be used exactly as the label says. This is where respect matters. Open windows if the directions call for ventilation. Run the kitchen exhaust fan if appropriate. Wear the protective gloves or eye protection the label recommends. And keep children and pets away while you work. Do not spray stainless trim, heating elements, igniters, control panels, or any surface the product says to avoid. More product is not better. A chemical strong enough to dissolve baked grease deserves careful handling. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is spraying it and immediately scrubbing. If the label says the product needs dwell time, give it that time. Let the cleaner do the loosening before your arm does the work. That is the difference between wiping away softened grease and grinding at a surface that is still bonded tight. Now look at the bottom heating element if your oven has an exposed one. Do not bend it, lift it, or spray underneath it unless your appliance manual specifically says it is designed to move for cleaning. Some ovens are built differently, and forcing an element can damage connections you cannot see. Clean only the accessible areas the manufacturer allows. If product accidentally touches a restricted component, follow the product label and oven manual for cleanup rather than guessing. The old way was never about being reckless because a method was simple. It was about knowing when to leave something alone, and while the cleaner or baking soda is sitting, this is the perfect time to talk about the button so many people trust without ever asking what happens behind the door. Self-clean. That feature sounds almost magical. You press one button, the door locks, and the oven appears to take care of the mess by itself. But it does not wash anything. A self-clean cycle typically works by driving the oven to an extremely high temperature for several hours, so food residue is reduced to ash that can be wiped away afterward. That heat is far beyond normal baking temperatures, which is why the door locks and why the kitchen can become noticeably hotter. On an oven designed for the cycle and used according to its manual, the function may be allowed. But it is still a demanding process, especially if there is heavy grease inside, and manufacturers often give specific preparation and ventilation instructions. That is why I do not treat the button as a casual shortcut. Before you use it, you should know what your own oven requires, and in the next part, I will show you why I usually prefer the slower hand cleaning method instead. The reason I prefer cleaning by hand is not because the self-clean feature is secretly evil, or because every oven will fail the first time you use it. It is because the cycle asks the appliance to endure heat far beyond normal cooking temperatures, sometimes around 800 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on the model. That intense heat is what turns baked food into ash, but it also places extra thermal stress on door locks, fuses, wiring, control boards, and other components. Appliance technicians often see failures after high heat cycles, especially in older ovens or machines that already have a weak part. Heavy grease can also create smoke and, in bad cases, increase the chance of a fire inside the cavity. So, when people tell me they press that button every time the oven looks dirty, I ask them one question. Why make the machine endure its harshest cycle when a slower hand cleaning can often do the job? If your manufacturer says the self-clean function is safe for your model and you choose to use it, follow the manual exactly. Remove whatever it tells you to remove, ventilate the kitchen, and never run the cycle with excessive grease or debris inside. But in my own home, I would rather clean the oven by hand and spare it that extreme heat when I can. That is the lesson I carried from the women in my family in Brazil. We were taught to preserve an appliance first and replace it last. My grandmother did not have a glowing button promising to burn the mess away. She had patience, a cloth, a paste, and the understanding that taking care of something a little at a time was cheaper than asking it to survive abuse. But the oldest household knowledge was built around a different question. What keeps the thing working for as many years as possible? There is not much profit in teaching someone to use a few spoonfuls of baking soda, a little water, and patience. There is plenty of profit in shelves full of specialized products and appliances replaced before their time. I am not saying some company sat in a dark room and designed a conspiracy against your oven. It is simpler than that. What is profitable gets advertised. What is plain, cheap, and passed quietly from one person to another can disappear because nobody has a reason to put it on television. And once a generation stops learning it at home, suddenly an old method feels like a secret. Now, while we have been talking, the cleaner or baking soda paste has had time to work. This is where you come back with a damp microfiber cloth and start wiping in sections. Do not try to clean the entire cavity with one dirty towel. Wipe a small area, rinse the cloth thoroughly, wring it out, and move to the next section. If you keep using a cloth loaded with grease, you are not removing dirt anymore. You are painting it from one wall to another. With baking soda paste, you may need several passes with clean, damp cloths to remove the powdery residue. With a commercial cleaner, follow the label precisely for wiping and rinsing because some products require repeated clean water passes before the oven can be used again. Work from the back and sides toward the front so you are not constantly leaning over areas you have already cleaned. Use only methods approved for the glass and coatings on your particular oven. Some doors have special finishes, vents, or multiple panes that should not be flooded with liquid. If your model allows the door to be removed for cleaning, check the manual before touching the hinges. Many oven doors are surprisingly heavy, and the hinge springs can snap with force. If you have never removed one, have another person help and follow the manufacturer's steps. Now you may find one or two places, usually on the oven floor or door glass, where a black piece of carbonized food refuses to move even after soaking. This is where people get impatient and reach for the roughest scouring pad in the kitchen. Aggressive, abrasive pads can scratch enamel or glass, and once a finish is scratched, future grease has more texture to cling to. If your oven manufacturer permits a scraper on that specific surface, use the approved kind with the surface damp and work slowly at a shallow angle. On some glass surfaces, a fresh razor-style scraper may be allowed, but on others it can cause damage, so the manual comes first. A plastic scraper is the safer default when you are unsure. The rule is that you should lift a stubborn deposit without attacking the surface underneath it. And whenever ordinary scrubbing is needed, choose a non-scratch sponge or soft cloth. Gentle wins because the oven has to survive your cleaning after the grease is gone. Have you ever scratched an appliance trying to make it cleaner? Tell me in the comments, because almost everyone has one story where stronger seemed smarter for about 30 seconds and then became permanent. Now go back to the racks that have been soaking while you worked. By now, the warm water and dishwasher detergent have had time to soften much of the greasy film. Take a soft sponge or brush and wipe along each bar. What would have taken an hour of dry scrubbing often begins to slide away because you let chemistry and time go first. Turn the rack over, clean the undersides, and pay attention to the corners where grease hides. If a rack still has stubborn residue, repeat the soak rather than immediately reaching for something aggressive. Some uncoated metal racks may tolerate very fine steel wool, but others have finishes or coatings that can be damaged. So check the manufacturer before using it. Rinse the racks thoroughly with clean water. Dry them completely so you are not putting dripping metal back into the oven. Then set them aside while you do one final inspection of the cavity. Look along the lower corners, around the door frame, and near the front edge where crumbs collect. Make sure no cleaner, baking soda, or greasy residue remains. If you used a commercial chemical, do not guess whether it is rinsed enough. Follow the product directions. If you use the baking soda method, a clean, damp cloth should eventually come away without white residue. Once everything is clean and dry, slide the racks back into their correct positions. If you removed the door, reinstall it exactly as the manual describes, and make sure both hinges are seated before letting go. The oven that looked permanently brown and black begins to look like an appliance again instead of a box you were afraid to open. The commercial cleaner, if you chose that route, was given the dwell time on its label instead of being attacked immediately. The stubborn spots were treated locally instead of the whole oven being punished. That is the Brazilian method I learned at home. Organize the job so time does more work than your body. There is another habit that keeps you from repeating this whole deep clean too often. Do not wait until the oven smokes before noticing a spill. When something boils over and the appliance has cooled completely, clean the fresh residue as soon as it is safe. A splash that wipes away today can become a black crust after repeated heating. Put a baking sheet beneath dishes that are likely to bubble over. Only when doing so is safe for your oven and does not block airflow. Never line the oven floor with foil unless the manufacturer specifically permits it. So here is what I want you to do before you ever reach automatically for the self-clean button again. If hand cleaning is appropriate, take the racks out, let them soak, remove the loose mess, dry, and choose your method. Make the baking soda paste and use vinegar separately afterward on compatible surfaces, or use a commercial cleaner with the ventilation and protection its label demands. Give whatever you use enough time to work. Wipe with clean cloths, rinse often, protect the heating elements and sensitive components, and treat stubborn char gently instead of attacking the finish. Then tell me two things in the comments. How old is your oven? And have you been using the self-clean cycle all these years? And tell me where you are watching from. If you are in Brazil, give me your state. If you are somewhere else, tell me your country. I learned so much from seeing which appliances last, which cleaning habits people inherited, and how differently homes are cared for from one place to another. Next time, we are going one level higher to the stovetop above this oven. We will look at the burnt rings around the burners, the grease that turns sticky like glue, and the places people scrape until the finish is dull. I will show you how to approach that mess with the same principle. Loosen first, scrub second, and protect what you own. But today, finish the oven you have been avoiding. Think twice before asking the oven to endure an extreme self-clean cycle, simply because the button is there. Clean patiently, rinse carefully, dry everything, and put it back together with the same care you would give something you expected to keep for years. The women who taught me in Brazil relied on simple materials, good habits, and patience. Somehow, the things they cared for stayed with them for years.